Hi, I'm Rob, and this is By Now, where I constantly find myself asking the most important questions of our lives. What the fuck, and how has this not changed by now? I'm bi and non binary, and my pronouns are they, them. They're the boxes I check, but they fall incredibly short of how I experience the world. This is a space that I'm using to further free myself from the binaries of life, to better understand why they exist in the first place, and to connect with others looking to do the same. I'm so happy that you're all here today. And when I say about looking to connect with others to do the same, that is so much of what I have found that by now is becoming. Of course, I don't release episodes or videos every day or even every week, and I'm a little late on this one. But there are so many different people that I'm connecting with on social media, through Twitter, especially through Instagram. The messages that I'm getting are so incredibly supportive, asking questions, looking for some feedback and some thoughts on my experiences and how they may relate to those who are asking the questions. It's a lot, folks. It's a lot. And I guess I didn't realize just how much of a niche there was for something like this to feel, or to fill, I should say. I always felt like there was something that I had to say, but I just wasn't sure how well or not it would resonate with others. And it seems to be resonating pretty well. And part of what I'm getting is that different episodes and different posts I make and different things I share, of course, are resonating differently with different people. And it's encouraging me to expand my mind and expand my understanding a little bit. I didn't mean to jump into this right away, but of course, I start every episode with that idea of the boxes that I check, but they fall short of how I experience the world. And I had somebody reach out to me, I don't know, about a week and a half ago, talking about how they like the boxes that they're checking and they feel comfortable inside those boxes and the boundaries that they give to them. And the conversation and the comment kind of gave me a bit of pause. I suppose there is a certain lack of security. I mean, even for myself, in the idea of not fitting into a box, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. But for this particular person who reached out to me, that they said that they find those boxes to be their home, and it's something that kind of gives them comfort, maybe like a weighted blanket. And what's interesting, so today's Rob fact, in case anyone wasn't up to date on this, I go to therapy once a week, and it is incredibly healthy for me to do, a healthy choice to make, and I think a necessary one. The journey that I have taken through my life, through my feelings, through how I understand or don't understand the world in therapy has been interesting, to say the least. My therapist, her favorite line after I share things with her is, "That's a lot." She says that on a regular basis. That's a lot. And it is, it's a lot. But in any case, I had shared this with her, this idea of boxes or lack thereof. And she said to me, of course, she was speaking my language and talking about cats. She said she imagines that some people are like, you get a package from Amazon and you put the box on the floor and the cat jumps in. And regardless of how big or how small the box is, more often than not, the cat finds a home there. And she said that she imagines me as the cat who's, constantly hitting at the flap of one of the boxes and might eventually, if it's on a table, just knock that shit right off. Um, and yeah, maybe it does get challenging and tiring not having a box or clearly defined boundaries or whatever you might like to call it. But in the same breath, that's where I find my home. But I appreciate that person who reached out to me to share that, because it was definitely a perspective that I had not considered, maybe to the fullest extent. So I appreciate that. My quote this week comes from Jen Hatmaker. Jen Hatmaker is a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, a host of the For the Love podcast. Jen was on We Can Do Hard Things, one of the most recent episodes. And I've never read anything she has put out there. I don't listen to her podcast, nothing like that. I think my audience here knows I listen to We Can Do Hard Things on a very regular basis, because I'm constantly trying to do hard things. And I love the perspectives of not only Glennon and Abby and Amanda, but also a lot of the guests that they bring on. And although this wasn't an episode that I felt like I had any sort of deep revelation or super connection to, I did have an old friend who reached out, and for her, she found the message in that pretty powerful, and shared the episode with me. So one of the quotes from Jen this past week, she said, "This is me. I feel me. I feel me living. I feel me alive. I feel my leading without editing and without constantly having to shapeshift around somebody else and without having to keep the thing afloat. And I wouldn't trade it." And I thought that was pretty apropos for today's episode of By Now. I've been thinking quite a bit about what this episode looks like, and I had alluded in one of the previous episodes to the idea of coming out, and it was tough to get my thoughts around this one, folks. Not gonna lie, it was kind of tough. Um, Adding to that, the conversations that I've been having with people through social media about coming out and about being out. Um, but even for myself, kind of what's caused a bit of a delay here. I don't know about any of you, but the past week and a half or so, my anxiety has been through the roof. There's just been a lot going on in the world. There has been a lot going on in my own personal life. Just some of the things out there, even since I put out the last episode of By Now, the Don't Say Gay bill passed in Florida. Now there's one in Ohio that is making me incredibly sick. And looking for what I can do or what I can say to keep that from happening. Is my voice loud enough to encourage anything positive toward that? All of these issues, specifically against trans folks and non-binary folks, and the use of pronouns, and conversations that should or shouldn't happen, or when kids should be exposed to the idea that there is anything out there but heteronormative relationships, or the idea that gender is anything but a construct, or the idea that certain bathrooms have to go to certain people. It's just, it's upsetting, it's concerning. And frankly, sometimes I look at the world and I don't know how we got here. It seemed like, I remember before COVID hit, there were so many of these bathroom bills out there. And then COVID hit, and although trans folks weren't being treated any better while COVID was happening and is continuing to happen, let's be honest, the news cycle has just gotten tired of it. But the effects are still there in some pretty serious ways. Now we've come back to trans issues, and it is irksome, it's concerning, and it is standing in the way of people who just want to live their lives. I don't know about any of you, but when I was a kid, I was told, be whoever you want to be whatever you want to be. You can do anything. And it was only as I got older that that message began to change, and the message of pick a box, be this or that, up or down, as opposed to limitless opportunities, the walls started closing in. And when these walls start to close in when you're so young, when you're a kid, or hell, it's not easy when you're in your 20s or 30s either. I can't speak beyond that, besides what I've read and what I've heard from trans folks and from other individuals who are part of marginalized groups. But it doesn't get easier. But also, these are kids. these are kids. They're imaginative and colorful and creative. They just want to live their lives. And I have a lot more to say about that. Not really the point of today, but there's so much going on out there, and these don't say gay bills are being positioned as in the best interests of children. We must protect the children. I think of Helen Lovejoy from The Simpsons. Won't somebody please think of the children? And how about the queer kids? How about the gender non-conforming kids? How about the kids who come from households that are not the typical man, woman, mother, father? They don't even have to, it doesn't even have to have anything to do with their orientation, but just families that look different than what you might expect. I try to remain cognizant of this in my own teaching and times when I'm with students. I try not to refer to parents. I try to use terms like the adults at home or the adult in your life who makes decisions for your life, things like that, because I'm sure there are students who are sitting out there in my classroom who don't have those particular sets of parents, or parents are separated or have a different relationship, or they live with grandma or auntie or whoever else, or have a terrible relationship with those adults in their lives who should be making appropriate decisions about their lives. So there's so much about these kids, especially, that certain people want to protect their virtue, their whatever else it may be. The fact of the matter is, they are citizens of the world just like the rest of us, and they need to be encouraged to be who they are. As long as they're not hurting themselves or anybody else, that needs to be encouraged. So I'll say gay, I'll say bi, I'll say trans, I'll say whatever, whatever, because these kids are coming to us with these identities. We're not hoisting them upon them. And speaking of that, a couple of books to mention. I had read the book by Isaac Fitzsimons last year, The Passing Playbook. Definitely worth a read if you're trying to understand the experience of trans kids in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure this is just one experience from one perspective, but definitely worth a read. I read it last July, and it still sticks with me. The idea is that someday Kristen and I would like to be parents. It's the kind of thing where we have been trying for quite a while, and we I think we get strange looks sometimes for being in our mid-30s and not having kids. People wondering why, and I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who think it may have something to do with Rob being bi, or being NB, and people can think what they want to think. My give a fucks are almost gone. I'm kind of tired of people shitting what they're putting on me or what they're saying about me. Turn the finger around a little bit, but we'd like to be parents in some way, shape, or form someday. And I try to learn from the people around me who are parents, and I try to read things and take those experiences into account. So, I think about, what if we had a kid who was trans, or a kid who was anything other than what society expected them to be. I want to be prepared for that. I want to have as wide a perspective as I can, so that I can be the best parent to that kid, so that they can be who they are, and they're not afraid to have me as a parent being who I am, feeling that they should be ashamed because of how I present to and interact with the world. So read a little bit. I did wind up starting Monkey Beach as well. I had referred to that quote in the last episode. Very interesting read so far. There aren't really chapters, there are kind of parts of the book. So long, long stretches of just stories and recounting. Very interesting. And then after months and months of working on it, I finished the 1619 project. Gosh, I'm just reading all the controversial stuff. Um, I don't think it's so controversial, folks. This idea that the way we study history is not the only way to study history, or perhaps is not the right way to study history. This isn't an alternative version of American history. These things happened. And when you look at the experience of Black folks in America and how so many of them continue to live in fear or are made by white Americans to feel like they are any less than American, it's incredibly mind-boggling. And I feel a bit ashamed of not knowing this history before now. These things happened, and these things continue to affect how Black people in America are treated. When I have to have a conversation with my class right now that is over half Black teenagers about being pulled over by a cop and what to do, it can't be anything but a real conversation, because I owe more to them than to just whitewash the situation. That conversation shouldn't have to happen, but it does. And again, last month I had watched The Hate You Give, and that's on my to read list as well. This is a sad reality in which we live, and now that we've accepted that fact, the question is what to do about it. And the answer for me is I don't know just yet. I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like there's a lot of intersectionality when it comes to Black issues and queer issues. When you go back to Stonewall and realize that it was, Black trans women who really led the call and the charge for pride, for the freedoms, even though they're constantly challenged, that queer folks are able to feel today. We can't forget that history and where we've come from and where the foundations were laid and by whom they were laid. So there's a lot of intersectionality here, and it has definitely stimulated me to think about how I move forward with all of this. It's a lot, and I realize that I come from a place of privilege, and I don't understand exactly how it fits into every area of my life, but I want to do what I can to make an impact. And that's part of why I continue to be here. And also, moving on in a completely different way, fuck the Cleveland Browns. I won't even say the name of the quarterback that they're bringing on with 22 22 accusations of sexual assault, and the money that they're paying this person and the steps that they are taking to essentially shield themselves and this person from any or the maximum financial implications. Kristen and I went to all the Browns games last year through a friend. We were able to get season tickets, and we had a good time. It was football. It was what it was. For us, it was more important to be with our friends than anything else. But I was a little sour on things to begin with. But I figured, hey, this is a better year. We'll move on. And then they're paying this money to bring on this person, and it just makes me sick. And it comes from a place of privilege, once again, for me to be able to say, oh, well, we'll just give up our season tickets. But Cleveland, come on, get your shit together. It stinks of desperation that you're bringing this person on, number one. And number two, what does this say about this city? What does this say about this team? What does it say about the integrity of the franchise? Fuck you. That's what it says. Also, to those of you out there who don't like that I curse on a regular basis, you don't have to listen. I had somebody say to me recently about somebody who is not currently a part of my life, about how they don't like the fact that, I curse in posts or in podcasts or whatever. You do not have to listen. Let me be clear. I also want to be clear about the fact that I am angry. I am upset. I am frustrated by a whole bunch of things right now. And it's not that I'm taking it out on you or on anybody else, but I need you to know, if you're listening to this and you're angry as well about certain things that are happening in the world, you're not the only one. So what do you do with this anger? What do you do with this frustration? Me, I come here. I come here, I take a sip of my iced tea, and I keep talking. All right, let's get to a little bit about bisexuality today and being out. So Robyn Ochs, who is what I would call a hashtag bicon, she is a speaker, a teacher, a writer, an activist, and has been for bi folks for a long, long time. She puts out there a definition of bisexuality that I've really always liked, that I feel resonates with me, that I kind of jive with a bit, and a lot of other bi folks seem to as well. She says, I call myself bisexual because I acknowledge that I have in myself the potential to be attracted romantically and or sexually to people of more than one gender. More than one gender. Not necessarily at the same time, not necessarily in the same way, and not necessarily to the same degree. For me, the bi and bisexual refers to the potential for attraction to people with genders similar to and different from my own. Similar to and different from my own. I love that definition of bisexuality. And for anyone who listens to Two Bi Guys with Rob Cohen, he did a couple of episodes recently where they explored the history of the word bisexual, where it came from, what it means now, and kind of how it's changed a bit. And the definition that goes along with it and the people who seem to embody it change as well as time goes on. There's this idea that people have to somehow prove their bisexuality, or if they're not with a man and a woman at the same time, that somehow they're not bi or they're not bi enough. Folks, there is strength in numbers as far as I'm concerned. If you want to come under this umbrella and shelter yourself from the rain, if you are willing to speak out and serve as a role model, sweet Lord, didn't get enough sleep last night. If you were here to serve as a role model, as a connection, as a bridge, why not? Why not? And you want to call yourself bi, as long as you are not using it for some sort of personal gain, which other than if you're some sort of celebrity queer baiting the rest of us, I don't see how you could, but welcome. Be here. My big thing is, even if you can only be out to yourself, that's enough. If you can be out to yourself, excuse me, and to other people, go for it. Go for it. We are willing and wanting and waiting to have you. So come on over. Come on over. And this idea of coming out, I said before, to me, it was never super important. I've been thinking about this recently. I think part of why it was not super important to me, and maybe even why I had a little bit of, I don't know, I don't want to say disrespect for the experience, but I didn't really feel it was necessary for me. To a certain extent, I guess I felt that it would not have been a big deal. I can't tell you how many people when I was younger, and again, I've only really thought about this recently, were waiting for me to come out. Oh, gosh. Sleep is important, folks. Were waiting for me to come out as gay. Now, here's the thing. For me, that was always kind of demeaning. There's nothing demeaning about being gay. There's nothing wrong with being gay. But there is something wrong with people waiting for you to come out as something you are not. I didn't know the word queer. And if I would have in the 90s, it might have been in a negative context. I didn't know the word bi. I've spoken about this before. I didn't have the vocabulary. And when I look at my gender and identifying as non-binary, being non-binary, I definitely did not have that vocabulary. So for me, my bisexuality and my non-binariness kind of go hand in hand. And I think what I was getting from other people, oh boy, I think what I was getting from other people was that, or what other people maybe were getting from me, was the intersectionality of these two, where I wasn't the manliest man, but no one had seen me like do anything with a guy or be romantically attracted to a guy, at least not that I was familiar with, or anyone who was not a woman. And frankly, even when I was younger, even that would have been, I suppose, tough to see, other than when I started dating as a teenager. So I don't really know what that means, that they were waiting for me to come out as gay. And I can't help but wonder if that was expected by my parents as well. I'm pretty sure my mom asked me a couple of times whether or not I was gay. And I told her no, because I wasn't, and I'm not. And I never have been. And for some people, there is this idea that if you are with somebody of the quote unquote same gender, that then you are homosexual, in that very specific, um, strict definition. I have never been that. I have lots of friends who are, and I'm happy that they can be who they are. All I ask is the space to be who I am. And that's a lot of the messages that I have gotten recently, specifically from men, again on Twitter and on Instagram, this idea of being bi. And a lot of them have not come out as bi until later in life, later in their marriages, more often than not, specifically to women. And I'm very often asked the question, what do you do with that? What does that look like? Here I am. I'm 35. I'll be 36 this year. I know, hard to believe for those of you who are watching me on YouTube. I just got some new green here, so I try to stay young to connect with everyone. No, I just love the color green. What do you do about that? So that's what I'm taking that as is, Rob, you're bi, you're married. What do you do about being bi? Again, this idea that I think a lot of it comes back to sex and sexuality and attraction, and whether or not I'm going to run out and have sex with people who have genitals that look like mine, or even just other people who are not Kristen, who are not my wife. Folks, if that is your desire, it sounds to me, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to me like you have a problem with monogamy and not with being bi. Now, if you come out later in life as being bi, and you have you have this regret that you didn't get to be with a particular gender because you only came out later in life, these are conversations that you need to have. There are opportunity costs, I suppose, if you really want to make it about sex, which I think is where bi folks get a lot of negative press over the years. This idea that bi folks are greedy and they just want to sleep with everybody and they find everybody attractive. Let me tell you, I don't find everybody attractive. I don't want to sleep with everybody. I'm not saying that there aren't other people that I'm attracted to. I'm a human being. If you can honestly say to me that there is no one that you are attracted to besides your long-term partner, in whatever way you are expressing that long-term partnership, congratulations for you. You are not me. If Kristen was sitting here, and I do plan on having her on an episode at some point, she would say the same thing. We were at dinner the other night and she was talking about somebody, and I'm like, yeah, him. I get that. 100% I get that. The hair, the bod. Come on now. Plus, you can have fun with those sorts of things as well. But again, in my experience and in my knowledge, in those particular circumstances, you don't have an issue with your bisexuality. You've got an issue with your monogamy. And if you feel it strongly enough, my advice to you, if you are in a long-term connected partnership, just one, and you are monogamous, have a conversation with your partner. Maybe you don't know what their reaction is going to be. Maybe this is the kind of thing that does open up your marriage, or maybe this is the kind of thing where you have a conversation and they're able to share something about themselves that they haven't shared before. I don't know. What I do know is that every marriage is different. And the idea of something like an open marriage is not specific to folks in a relationship where one or both of them identify as something other than straight. There are plenty of marriages out there, plenty of relationships where it's open, or people are poly, or they have something that is other than the traditional, I now pronounce you man and wife, you may never sleep with anybody else for the rest of your life. And if that works for those folks, then that works for those folks. Via con Dios, live your most authentic life. For me, I think what's most important is the idea of honesty and openness with the person that you're with. Now, this from the person who spent a long time trying to conform to what others expected of them. That's hard. That's hard. And maybe you get to a certain point where you have tried doing something similar and you're at the end of your rope. And now you need to have this conversation. And, one of the things I liked about the episode of We Can Do Hard Things this past week, Jen was talking about how Glennon had used the term genaissance for her after she got divorced and, was kind of coming into her own. Oh, excuse me. And I look at the past couple of years, and for myself, yeah, it has been a renaissance. And there is so much about it that I have loved, and so much about it that has and continues to be challenging. And I can't tell you the number of honest and open and gritty and raw conversations that I have had with my wife, my partner, my spouse, however you'd like to refer to her and however she'd like to refer to herself. But we talk about hard things. We talk about real things. We're both growing and changing and learning together and loving more deeply in the partnership, the very real partnership that we have. My thing has always been this. So many people say that they want to marry their best friend, that they want a partner. I hear women all the time say, I want a guy who is sensitive, who understands my needs, who isn't afraid to do this, that, or the other thing. But then they seem to get into marriages where the man is the head of the household simply because of what dangles between his legs. And listen, that's okay. If that's the type of marriage and the type of relationship you want to have, if it works for you, who am I to judge? 100%, who am I to judge? That is not the type of relationship that I ever wanted or ever looked for, and probably why the relationships that I had searching for that failed. I was looking for someone who could be my partner. I was looking for somebody who we didn't have specific gender roles. It wasn't, she was the woman. And at the time, with how I identified that I would be the man, that wasn't what I was ever looking for. So when I look at the dynamic of our relationship, I'm sure there are people out there who know Kristen and me personally who wonder like, oh, well, Rob is so out and now he's non-binary and oh, he's bi, but he's always been bi, but had never said anything on social media before. Like, what does this all mean for their marriage? What it means for us is that I love my wife. What it means for us is that our roles have not changed. What it means for us is that we started as good friends and then turned into lovers and deepened our friendship and partners and people who are experiencing this life together. We have been through some hard things, my friends. We have been through such hard things. And when I think about the dynamics of the relationships that we have with other people that have changed over the past couple of years, the people who have faded away or the people who have very clearly not shown an interest in continuing as part of our lives. And when I look at the people who have come into our lives and the new connections that we've made, if there has been a constant through this all, it's been the two of us. There have been times for me where things have become a bit too much. There have been times for Kristen where things have become a bit too much, but we always find a way to make it work. We work on ourselves by going to therapy, by having time for ourselves, by doing separate jobs, even though we come together for the driving school, by having experiences that are outside of our partnership that enrich us, that then we are able to take and share with one another. She's living a life I can't lead. I'm living one that she can't. But the joy of part of our partnership and the love that we have is being able to exchange those experiences with one another. Her successes are my successes and mine are hers. Her struggles are mine and mine are hers. And we learn from one another and grow by sharing them and helping one another to understand them. Now, it sounds ideal, perhaps, but there's so much work that has gone into this for the two of us. So much work. Something else that has come up that kind of ties into this whole idea of being out, especially in the context of marriage, is whether or not sexuality and gender still even matter once you're married. Does it matter that I'm bi? Does it matter that I'm non binary? Does it matter in the context of our relationship, of my marriage, of Kristen and I's partnership? Does it matter for you? Would it matter if you were in a relationship long term that you had no plans of ending, where you had to keep part of yourself muted? I never have bought into this idea that two people come into a marriage and then it's, kind of like, mixing red and yellow together to get orange. No, you're still red and yellow, and that's okay. You should be. Maybe there can be a bit of orange because of what you share. But the two people or more, depending on the relationships that you have and the structure that you practice, they should be able to continue being one another. If you want to completely lose yourself in someone else, you go for it. That's not what I was ever looking for. That is not a narrative connected to successful partnerships that I have ever seen. And then if and when those kinds of relationships end, that person cracks and crumbles. They don't have an identity separate from the person that they had latched onto. And isn't that incredibly sad? So does sexuality and gender still matter once you're married? Absolutely. For me, I think it has mattered even more since entering into this marriage, this partnership, this relationship. Yeah, forget the marriage. I mean, Kristen and I have been together for almost 8 years. It's a long time. It's a long time. Our childhood was just ending in our 20s as we found one another and started what we have now. And what we are building with one another, I think, is remarkable. I think over the past couple of years, we've kind of gone back and strengthened the foundation, filled in a lot of the cracks, opened up maybe rooms that we had set aside and put plastic on the furniture and sheets over, and then opened those up again and, opened the windows and dusted a bit. But we're moving forward. We're moving forward and experiencing life in more authentic ways, both separately and together than we ever have before. So what does it mean for you? You're this bi person who are in their 30s or 40s and you're just discovering this. Or maybe you are the kind of person who had experiences with another gender when you were younger or the same gender as you. And only now are you reckoning with that. You're coming to terms with it. It's something that you can no longer hold in. Well, what are you supposed to do? Especially if you decide I'm going to do something, I need to be out there, and then you find that the only choice you seem to have to express your bisexuality or your queerness or whatever it may be in this particular context is to somehow look for sexual experiences. Well, again, I'll go back to Robyn's definition up here. She talks about calling herself bisexual because she acknowledges that she has in herself the potential to be attracted romantic and sexually to people of more than one gender. So again, you're bi, you're married, you want to be out, but is it just that you want to be out because maybe you're a guy and you want some dick? Or maybe you're a woman and you want to be with another woman. Or maybe you are coming to terms with being non-binary or trans or something else? Can your marriage, can your partnership go through those kinds of growing pains and moments and sagas that it needs to make it to, I don't want to say the other side of your journey, but further down the road into your journey? Well, that's something between you and your partner. It is. And what kind of partnership do you have? Is it one of honesty and openness? Folks, I can't tell you how many marriages I have seen, or even just relationships, or even friends who say they want to have honest and open relationships. And then you find that you talk about nothing, that you're not open and honest, that after a long day, you come home and you just want to sit on the couch and watch TV, and you don't want to talk about the important things. You don't want to talk about the hard things. You don't want to go out and experience life together. This is just somebody that you catch up on old episodes of TV shows with, rather than someone you're experiencing life with. And if that works for you, let me be clear, that's fine. For me, whether it's a partner or a friend, those kinds of people do not last very long in my life. I cannot have deep relationships with everybody. I cannot process all of the challenges of the world or of my life or their life with everybody. Sometimes we just need some time to chill out, and that's fine. But if you're not going to have conversations with me about the tough things, if you're not going to notice the changes of who I am, or what I'm putting out there into the world, and you just want to check off the list. How's the driving school? Are you paying your bills? Are you cutting your lawn? What are you doing about this? Those are not people that I'm going to engage with much on a regular basis. There are things, again, like I started this episode with, that I'm angry about right now, that I'm frustrated about, that I'm looking to do something about. And even if you don't feel that you can do something about those things, because I don't feel like I can do something about everything, but even if you don't feel like you can do something about those things, at least talk to me about them. I very often find that these are difficult conversations to have with people who have different quote unquote political opinions than I do. First off, I don't think anything having to do with trans kids or queer folks in that particular way, or black folks and how they experience the world, I don't think that's political. I think that that's recognizing the humanity in other people and showing compassion and empathy for their life experiences. A kid being able to express themselves for who they feel themselves to be, or a person being able to use the bathroom that they feel most comfortable in, why the fuck is that political? It's not. It shouldn't be. But the fact is, that's how it's labeled. And for any of you out there who say, I don't get involved in politics, folks, I'm sorry, but this is life. This is life. And I hate to be one of those people who say you have to pick a side. But those who don't are. If you're not on the side of these trans kids, if you're not on the side of black folks looking to be treated fairly, then you're on the other side. You're on the side of those who would seek to snuff out an experience other than white, cis, male, patriarchal. And for me, I would rather see people challenge the world to include their experiences, rather than for those same people to aspire to assimilate. That's bullshit. Don't tell me you don't see their experiences, or you don't see color, or you don't see trans folks. Understand, learn, grow, celebrate. Just my thought. So what do you do? What do you do? Again, have those conversations, but again, let's say you're queer in a straight presenting relationship, or let's say you are bi in a monosexual relationship. What do you do? Or your gender, you're suddenly realizing it is different than what you've believed it to be your entire life. What do you do? What can you do to be out there? These are questions I've asked myself as well. I've had a lot of suggestions given to me, things like volunteering for a local LGBTQ plus organization or somewhere like the Trevor Project. Speak out as someone who's queer in that particular way. Be there as a resource to other people. Oh, excuse me, this happens when I talk too much for too long and don't take a break. Watch and respond to videos on places like YouTube or places like TikTok. I can't tell you how many stories I have heard of people who have realized that they are either queer, that they are bi, that they are trans or NB through TikTok. And again, I think a lot of this too is with everything with COVID. It shook the world. It shattered our perspective. It made a lot of us realize just how made up all this shit is. Again, how we are jacking into the matrix, fulfilling these roles, being a part of the system. I get up every day and I put on a gender role or lack thereof, or what am I saying by putting on this bracelet or choosing this watch band or cuffing or not cuffing my jeans? Like, what am I saying to the people around me? I look at my hair and I look at my piercings and how I present to the world and my tattoos. What is this saying? What are you saying? Hopefully you're saying what you want. So do those sorts of things. Find community online. I am so, so grateful for the people that I'm able to connect with on Twitter and on Instagram who either are queer or have, some sort of experience to share or who are queer adjacent, have people in their lives who they love, or maybe they're just allies looking to support the community and grow their own hearts. That's fantastic. Start a group of your own, start a podcast of your own, start a blog of your own. Do something, put it out there. If you have questions, ask them. Ask them. And if you feel like you can't be safe in coming out to someone or in speaking up in that particular way, feel free to start a conversation with me. I am so okay with that. Start a conversation with me. Reach out to me. Say the things to me in a DM that you can't say to other people, either for fear of being judged or for fear of being harmed. Say it to me, or find another queer person who it's safe to say that to. Go to queer spaces if you can. If there's, I don't care if it's something like you want to go to a gay bar, go to a gay bar. If you know that there's some sort of a reading or poetry reading or open mic or whatever it may be where it's presented by queer folks, go to a queer business and buy from those folks, whether it's go back to the OG, a bakery or a bookstore or whatever it may be. Find them. Queer jewelry, there are plenty of people on Etsy. Go for it. Read queer literature. Vote for queer legislation. When I not that I'm saying that queer issues should be singular issues, but if you're voting for somebody who stands against folks who are queer in any way, who are trans or whatever it may be, but you profess to love these people, you profess to love the queer folks in your life, but you're voting for a politician that would oppose them, is that the right choice to make? Maybe not. Maybe not. Be open to trying, discussing new things. Open your heart, open your mind, and realize that life exists in more than just the binary. We also need to do more work in destigmatizing things that I think have been considered to be, if I can use the word traditionally queer. What is it with guys being afraid to hug one another? I think of that scene from Grease where Danny and Kaneki hug, which was not originally supposed to be there, but they hug and then they separate 2 seconds later and they take out their combs and they're combing their hair because they're badass men. Fuck that. And I have to do better at this as well. I have to do better at this as well. You see it's two people who present as female cuddling and it's not considered to be a problem, or touching on the arm or the shoulder or whatever it may be. And I'm not saying to do it in a creepy way, but there are some people who will say, I'm just a hugger. I hug everybody. Well, me, I want to cuddle the world. Let's cuddle. Use words of affection. Tell people that you love them if you love them. Don't be afraid if you're a person who, presents as strong in whatever way you want to present, to say to somebody else, oh, I really like your shoes, or I really like your shirt, or, I like that you did this. Oh, that thing with your, like, these things that we find ourselves afraid to say because they are not associated with a particular gender role. Let it go. Be like Elsa. Let it go. I was afraid when I was younger to tell people that I love to listen to Celine Dion and Whitney Houston and Barbara Streisand, all these divas that, Madonna, that I have these memories of my mom playing when I was younger with the windows open in our house on Staten Island because we didn't have air conditioning. I was afraid to tell people that. When I was a kid, you had to like punk rock and rap, and which, hey, listen, if you do, that's wonderful. Good for you. There's some of that stuff that I like too. But there are also days where I'm driving down Mayfield Road and I'm blasting Lady Gaga because I like what she does. That's okay. Another thought as well, and maybe this is more of a marriage thing, which I don't really want to get into at the moment, but why do we have to lose friends when we're in committed relationships? Again, those words of affection and those touches and the cuddling and things like that. Like, why do we have to lose friends? Like, all of the interactions that we have that go beyond surface level should be reserved for that one person, for the person that we're married to, for the person that is our primary partner, or whatever it may. Why should it be reserved for that one person? The sun cannot rise and set on one other person. That's a lot of pressure. And for me, I don't equate that kind of pressure with love. So the friendships that I have that are close to me, I love these people, not in the way that I love my wife, not in the way that I love Chris, and not having the partnership with him that I have with her. But it's something different. It's something real. It's something that I want to allow myself to have, and I find myself being encouraged by Kristen to have, so that I have a full life. And I do. The connections I make with other people, I try to make them real. I try to make them honest. And sometimes it is just sitting around a TV or sitting around a fire pit. And hell, that's okay too. Queer your relationship a bit, folks. If you're coming out as whatever it may be, even if you're not jumping from to the rooftops and on top of a mountain to scream it, queer your relationship a bit. Make it more of a partnership. If you find yourself playing into traditional gender roles, challenge that a little bit. Kristen brought it up recently. This idea that um, you know, traditional idea that moms have to do everything. You're a good mom if you do this. You're a good mom if you do that. If you do that. But for dads, it's they're babysitting their kids. That isn't babysitting the kids. Like, you should be just as much of a parent as the other one is. But again, every relationship in that particular way is different as well. But this idea that certain accolades are put on certain people for taking care of the people that they helped to bring into this world. Again, every parenting relationship is different as well. But I don't feel like praise should be heaped on particular individuals for them fulfilling a role that they agreed to take on in the first place. But what do I know? I'm not a parent. I hope to be someday. Not there yet. Other small ways you can be out there: wear a ring. I have a bi flag ring that I wear every once in a while. I have pins that I wear. I have a pin that I got from the Human Rights Campaign that has my pronouns on it. I do find that it can be tough, being out there and being misgendered, and people who don't know me, they don't know the pronouns that I use and they don't ask. So putting that out there kind of gives a little bit of a way for me to say, hey, this is who I am and what I use, and try not to be super intrusive about it. I got last year on sale these awesome pairs of shoes from Tom's that have some rainbows on the back and they're white and they have some cool patterns on the inside that I know about. Got them super on sale. It was like 25 bucks. Those were awesome. Um, so I have a pride flag watch band that I got from Apple. Um, so little ways in which you can put yourself out there if you want to. You can go to Pride. Pride parades are they're a little bit divisive. I think this idea that we have this Pride because of riots that were started at Stonewall versus, hey, let's all just get together and be sexy and be drunk. I think the pendulum is swinging back towards center for some of that. But go to Pride, go have fun, even if you're not feeling comfortable getting right in there with everybody else. Again, maybe you're still on the periphery, and that's okay too. My point of all this, being out, if you can be, if it's safe for you to be, you are so welcome here. You are so welcome. There are some people out there who I think want to be the gatekeepers of queerness, of biness, of transness, of whatever else. But all I hear from folks who are in it, they're saying the more the merrier. We want you here. Amplify our voices. Be a voice with us. So there are ways to be out there. You just have to figure out what's important to you. And again, if you're just a guy who is in his 30s or 40s and you're coming out for the first time and you want some dick, that's a conversation you need to have if you have that primary partner, if you're in a committed relationship, marriage, whatever you'd like to call it. Because at least in my mind, you can rationalize it whatever way you want, but going out and doing that and not having that conversation and not being open and not setting expectations, that's called cheating. If you get to a point where you can have those open conversations and you're opening your marriage or something like that, again, that requires the two people who are in that particular partnership to agree to certain ground rules and expectations and to have communication. I'm not poly. I don't have any plans on it anytime soon. I don't know where the future is going to bring me. But in the same breath, all this work that we say that we want to do on open communication with the people that we're in relationships with, I say put your money where your mouth is and make it happen. If there is a hard thing that you need to talk about with your spouse, then talk about it with them. And if you were in a relationship where you feel like you cannot tell that person everything, I'd question whether or not the foundations are as strong as they should. Folks, that's a lot of heavy shit for today. I'm done. As I always tell you, this is a conversation that I want to keep going as much as it can. I can only respond to so much, but in the same breath, I want to know that I'm in it. I want you to know that I'm in it with you. Give me a call, shoot me a text. The number, as always, is 216-200-7779. 216-200-7779. Again, I won't answer the phone. I'll reply to the text message if you need me to. I'll respond to your call, to your inquiry, whatever it is in the next episode, or maybe I'll post it on Instagram or Twitter or something like that. And for those of you who have been DMing me on Instagram, Twitter, keep throwing that stuff at me. I love it. I love the conversations I'm having with you. I love the challenges you're throwing my way. Thank you for letting me be even a small part of your day, even a small part of your journey. And please, as always, I'd be a bad podcaster, YouTuber if I didn't ask. Subscribe to us. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us at ByNowPod, BINOWPOD, on Twitter, on Instagram. And leave a 5-star review if you can. That so helps all those crazy algorithms that are out there. If you're on YouTube, click that bell so that you get notifications for when those new episodes are out there. If you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're subscribing. And if for some reason you feel like you can't leave us a 5-star review, then just forget that I asked about it altogether. I am so glad that you've been able to make me a part of your day. I'm so glad to have shared part of yours. And all I can say is I love you. Bye now.